Favilla, recorded June the 14th, 2023. Reason number 11 of 24 that you should consider taking one positive spiritual step towards God as you understand. So, reason number 11, famines, food shortage. Clearly, each age has experienced food shortages as humanity developed from being nomadic, traveling, and hunting to gathering to domesticating animals and creating a supply system of food and methods for industrialized and civilized worlds. This, with the mechanical part of the market rate trade, has shown a radical change in how our world now obtains food. Few would dispute the recent food supply shortages in the United States and other first world countries as unique, real, and global. These are food shortages that transcend first world nation status, whether it is due to the shortage of drivers for the supply chain, shortages of actual food, or combination of both, which is most likely. The food shortages are real. In the church, quote, we embrace poverty, and yet no one would say the church is poor or simple, according to Father Luke of the Missionaries of the Poor. In fact, Father Luke Long says global shortages of food are manufactured and man-made and that sufficient quantities exist to feed the world. The church and others are interested in feeding the world daily, and yet food spoils and is discarded. So we are being manipulated to the extent that food supplies and availability are absolutely clear political strongholds. Famines are prevalent as well as within other countries. Food supply remains locally sourced oftentimes because of these disruptions. The crops of today, specifically the bioengineered food, should be considered as well because they're supposedly resilient and supposed to be better for shelf life and fulfilling the needs of having an active food supply chain. The same, if true, further evidences that greed is a contributing basis for the food shortages due to man-made supply and logistics issues. Yet here we are with no doubt of food shortages and global famines. These are signs of the end of the age. In their totality, these work together with the other indicators. Naturally, I should leave one for rational competency to consider that there is possibly a major spiritual age change, and you should consider taking one positive step. Upon study, one can consider as well that the food shortage transcends individual demographics. BBC reported on the 29th of April 2022 that a charity which performs food distributions was seeing a rise in Muslim families who become vulnerable and isolated, seeking Ramadan food for help. China, BBC News World reported on the 29th of April 2022 that the elderly were struggling in Shanghai quarantine centers to have food sourced. And all stations and outlets in America have reported in late May to early June of 2022, a year ago when this was written, that shortages of formula, food for infants were all prevalent and existed. These are global sufferings. Merriam-Webster defines the word famine as extreme scarcity of food, starvation, lack, drought, and poverty. Thus, the breath of famine is a term related not only to food shortage, but also to an unavailability of water and even financial poverty. So here we are, a global community with a significant wealth gap, food shortages, droughts, and rampant poverty. And it does not appear the government is able to provide real solutions. Yet there is global suffering. If the famines predicted are upon us, be mindful it is likely the same dovetails into the expansion of the final battle. Revelation 16, verses 12 to 16 is where that is located. Likely with an allegorical and literal layer, it discusses the drying up of the Euphrates, and the release of demonic spirits which stir anger among political leaders, and they oppose those by the lack. This will, per the Bible, culminate in the gathering together to the place called in the Hebrew Armageddon or Megiddo. Some speculate this to be a specific place, while others predict it to be a final destructive battle or conflict. Regardless of whether it's an isolated description of a specific battle worldwide, The famines on the earth are fueling anger and rising conflict within people and communities. While the world is in biological war, one may not completely dismiss with COVID that even the ground war invading in Russia, Ukraine by Russia, is evidence of the totality of the context. Note, many of these shortages are a result of trade industrial practice. Nations refusing to trade, which affects commerce in ways companies have difficulty communicating and logistically resolving. Labor forces are an issue, even with the broken bottleneck of supply and demand. It further evidences the overall issue of the supply and demand continuum being taxed and because of the changes in the social protocols specifically for travel and mask, and even with manipulation of currency. The baby formula shortage beginning in May of 2022 is an example. Whether due to a lack of supplies or logistics, the stories are evident, and there's an unstable, clear need now for us to fulfill those baby supply chain facets of making sure the communities are properly sourced. These are food shortage issues prima facie. Joseph Biden, president in 2020, invoked the Federal Protection Act on or about May, president as of 2020, invoked that on May 18th of 2022 to help alleviate the baby formula shortage, additionally contributing to the wholesale effect of hyperinflation upon the retail and final consumer. Thus, famines and food shortages are real, yet government's not offering any real solution. They further just get in the way, cause more webs of difficulty for those who are end consumers to receive good, healthy food. Reason number 11, one may consider thus that we're approaching a spiritual age, and that the indicator is Jesus may be returning, or there be some other form of a spiritual shift. Regardless, exercise your faith and ensure you and your family and friends are baptized and registered as Christians, or at least take this as a first indication of the need not just to feed yourself physically, but spiritually, and do take one positive step towards Jesus. Reason number 11, pestilence. Food shortages.